They say some homes breathe, inhalate, exhale, settle with age. But this house starved. It had always felt a little wrong, even on the first day Elias moved in. A coldness that refused to leave, like the house had been waiting, hungry, silent. He told himself it was just the age of the place, that a century-old structure would naturally groan in protest. But the air in the basement was different. Damp, dense, aware. He found the key while repairing the cracked stone wall beneath the stairwell, tucked behind a loose brick that slid out like it wanted to be found. It was no ordinary key. It was ancient, iron or perhaps bone, corroded by time and something darker. Its surface bore symbols that felt older than language. The moment his skin touched it, a strange chill shot through his veins. His vision shimmered, just for a second, as if the world blinked. And then the silence deepened. That night, Elias couldn't sleep. Every hour was marked by the sound of shifting wood and distant creaks. The digital clock beside his bed blinked toward 3 a.m., and when the numbers aligned, he heard the soft click. Not from his front door, not from a window, from the upstairs hallway. He rose, barefoot on cold wooden floors, his body moved by instinct more than thought. As he climbed the stairs, he noticed the shadows grew thicker, heavier, though no light had been extinguished. There, at the end of the hallway, where once there had only been blank wallpaper and dust, stood a door. Old black wood, unpainted. It hadn't been there before, and though the rest of the house lay still, the door breathed. Not outwardly, not literally, but something inside gave the sense of lungs expanding slowly in the dark, of being watched, of something expectant. The key in Elias's hand, now somehow warmer, hummed softly, as if recognizing its match. He should have run. He should have burned the house to the ground. But instead, Elias stepped forward. He turned the key. The lock opened with a smoothness that betrayed its age. No resistance, no protest. The door swung inward. But what lay beyond wasn't a room. It wasn't anything. It was a void, cold, black, soundless, a pressure like the stillness inside a sealed tomb. It didn't pull him in. No. It waited, as if it had been starving for him, for this moment, for this key. Elias hesitated at the threshold. Behind him, the hallway seemed impossibly distant. The air buzzed like static, his ears filled with a low hum, like whispers underwater. And then he stepped inside, not because he wanted to, but because something in the dark smiled. There was no air, no real air anyway. What filled Elias's lungs was something else, heavy, thick, tasteless, yet wrong. He expected darkness, and it was dark, yes, but not the simple absence of light. Number. This was a darkness that lived. It pressed against his eyes, caressed his skin with invisible fingers, seeped into the space between his thoughts. Time seemed to hold its breath. There were no clocks, no ticking, no hum from electronics or wind beyond walls. Only silence, and the sound of his own blood pounding. He took a step forward. The floor beneath his feet felt soft, like wet velvet. It gave slightly, like walking across the chest of something sleeping, something enormous. He whispered, "Hello?" The sound went nowhere. It was swallowed mid-air. No echo. Just a pressure shift, barely perceptible, but unmistakable, like the whole place had heard him, and approved. He turned. The door had closed, or vanished. He wasn't sure. The hallway he'd come from was gone. Only the dark remained. He wasn't alone. He didn't see anything, not at first, but he felt it. A presence not malevolent, but patient, ancient, curious. He took another step, and another. Then, without warning, The floor buckled. No, not buckled, slipped. The world twisted sideways, and reality folded in on itself. For a moment, he was falling without moving. His eyes blurred. His pulse screamed. And then, silence again. The door was back, right in front of him, open, waiting. Elias didn't remember turning around. He didn't remember walking back. Something had decided it was time for him to leave. And so he stepped out. The hallway welcomed him with soft light and quiet walls. His feet found familiar floorboards. But something was off. The air had a metallic taste. The wallpaper looked older, dustier, faded in a way it hadn't been before. He walked downstairs. The living room was cold. The windows were broken, boarded from the outside. His phone, still on the nightstand, wouldn't turn on. The battery was full. The screen just stayed black. On the kitchen table, a newspaper, crumpled, yellowed. The date read April 17th, 2031. Elias's mouth went dry. His knees weakened. He had entered the door at 3 a.m. in 2023. 8 years. Gone. In a matter of minutes. He staggered to the front door and flung it open. The world outside was quieter, overgrown, strangely emptier. No cars, no birds, no people. Just the sound of wind moving through a world that didn't miss him. He fell to his knees on the porch. The house behind him creaked. Not randomly, deliberately, almost like it had sighed in satisfaction. Elias staggered back inside, his limbs trembling. The house, his house, welcomed him like a mouth welcomes prey. The air inside had changed, not stale, not dusty, but ancient, as if it had aged with the world, even as he had not. He turned toward the fireplace, where the family photos had once sat in neat little frames, smiling faces. His sister, his mother, his college friends. But the mantel was empty now. No, not empty. Replaced. New photographs lined the shelf. Same frames, same dust outlines, but different faces. Unknown people. Children he didn't recognize. A man that looked almost like Elias, but not quite. His eyes were too empty, too still. On the far end of the shelf, a single photo remained the same. His own face. But the date scrawled beneath it, etched into the frame in deep, frantic scratches, read, "Died 2026. He backed away. Fast. His breathing became shallow. Each step felt wrong, as though the house resented his return. Then he saw it. On the dining table. A letter. A torn page from what looked like an old journal, folded once, yellowed and curled at the edges. His name was scrawled on the outside in a handwriting that was his own, but shaky. Desperate. Barely legible. He unfolded it. "Elias, if you're reading this, it means I failed to stop you. You went back again. You always do. I've tried every version, every warning, every escape. The door won't let us go. It wants us. It remembers. And if it remembers you, it never truly lets go. Whatever you do, do not go back at 3 a.m. You think you're choosing, but you're not. You're being invited. And the house always sets another place at the table. No signature. Only a bloody fingerprint at the bottom of the page." Elias dropped it and turned toward the staircase, but froze. There were footsteps upstairs. Slow, measured, familiar, his own. They moved exactly as he would walk. Same rhythm, same weight, same hesitation. A shadow passed by the top of the stairs, just for a second. But in that second, he saw it. Himself. Staring down. But the eyes weren't human anymore. Elias didn't sleep that night. Not really. He sat in the hallway with the lights on, watching the place where the door had appeared. Every time the house creaked, he flinched. every flicker of shadow made his breath catch in his throat. And yet, when 3 a.m. arrived, the door came back. Exactly the same place. Exactly the same sound. A soft click, like something unlocking itself. He had boarded it shut the day before, bolted it, nailed the wall. He had even tried to burn the key in the fireplace, but at 3 a.m. none of it mattered. The door was there again, pristine, clean, ancient. The boards were gone. The nails lay rusted on the floor like discarded bones. The key sat on the doormat, warm to the touch, waiting, and something behind the door breathed. He told himself not to go. He begged himself, screamed inside his own skull, but the house knew him. It understood his curiosity. It fed on it. So he turned the key. Again. This time the void inside was different. It wasn't a black nothingness anymore. It was a corridor, narrow, made of stone, lit by lanterns that burned without flame. Each wall pulsed with veins that shimmered faintly beneath the surface, as if the building was alive. He walked for only a minute, maybe less. He felt the shift again, a silent, invisible rupture, like passing through the breath of some timeless creature. Then he saw the door again, the same black door, now in front of him. He opened it. He emerged, back in his home, but it was quieter. Too quiet. The air smelled sterile, mechanical. There were no birds, no wind. The sun outside shone through windows that no longer opened. He found a newspaper on the porch. August 4th, 2060. 40 years. Gone. And the world had changed. Skyscrapers in the distance were hollowed, streets empty, nature creeping in like it had grown tired of waiting. But the house, still standing, unaged, like it had never moved, like it had waited. Elias didn't recognize his own face anymore. The bathroom mirror showed someone older, tired. His eyes had sunk slightly into his skull. His cheeks were hollow, his skin pale, stretched. But more than that, it was watching him, not reflecting. Watching. He leaned in and the mirror leaned closer, but not in sync. A delay, just a fraction of a second. Too small to notice if you weren't staring with dread behind your eyes. And then, suddenly, his reflection blinked. But he hadn't. The reflection smiled. Not wide, not manic, just a slow, horrible stretch of the mouth. And then it spoke. No sound, just lips moving. You're feeding it. Every time you return, it takes more. Elias stumbled backward. The mirror began to crack. From the center, where his reflected face was, outwards, long, jagged spider webs of glass. Behind the shattering glass was another version of the room. Dark, covered in symbols, blood on the walls, red candles flickering in windows that had been boarded shut from the inside, and in the center of that other room, a man, bound in chains, another Elias. He screamed silently from behind the mirror. Then everything shattered, and Elias was alone. But the pieces of the mirror on the floor, each one still showed a different version of his face, all of them screaming. The attic had always been locked, or rather it had always refused to open. Elias had never bothered much with it, until now. Until the night after the mirror shattered and the voices began whispering from behind the walls. Not loud, not screaming, just enough to keep him awake, just enough to keep him listening. You've been here before. You never left. The door opens because you keep opening it. And then, that night, the attic door creaked open on its own. The ladder extended like a tongue. Dust floated down like ancient spores. He climbed, slowly, each step groaning like the house was warning him. Don't remember. Don't remember. But he did. The attic smelled like mildew, forgotten time, and rot. Cobwebs clung to him like fingers. Old furniture lay beneath yellowed sheets, and boxes sat untouched for decades. He found it in the corner, wrapped in burlap, a journal. The cover was cracked leather, soaked through with age and something darker. No title, just the initials burned into the front. E.R. Elias Rains, his full name, but he had never written this. Not yet. He opened the first page. Entry 1. I thought I could map the room. I was wrong. It moves when you're not looking. It watches when you sleep. I left breadcrumbs. They dissolved. Entry 4. I met her again. The woman in white. She said my soul's been split. She said I left parts of me behind every time I walked through the door. I think she's right. Entry 9. I don't know which me is writing this, but I know the house doesn't want me to remember. Entry 12. The door only appears at 3 a.m., but I've seen it in dreams now. I think I brought it with me. Entry 16. Don't trust the man in the walls. He looks like you, but he isn't you. Entry 21. I buried a piece of myself in the crawl space. If I forget again, maybe it will find me. Elias flipped faster. The handwriting became frantic. Pages torn, ink blurred with smears of blood and something like ash. The final entry was scrawled in thick charcoal. I let it in. I let it feed. Now I am the house. You will be too. A line was drawn beneath it, deep enough to slice through the paper and carve into the wood beneath. Elias dropped the book. His hands were shaking. The attic was colder now. No, emptier. He turned around and saw that every object in the attic was covered in dust again, as if no one had touched them in decades. The journal? Gone. But his hands were still stained with ink, and the words from the last page were now etched into his palms. He first saw her in a corner of the attic, a pale shape drifting like smoke, barely there but impossible to ignore. Her dress was white, stained with time and shadow, flowing endlessly like water caught in a ghostly current. Her face was hidden beneath a veil, but her presence was as sharp as a scream in a silent room. Elias froze. She did not speak. She only watched. The air around her shimmered, cold and fragile, like a frozen tear about to fall. He wanted to run, but his feet felt glued to the floorboards. Then, in a voice like a breath of wind through dead leaves, she whispered, "You carry pieces of me, and I carry pieces of you." Elias's heart hammered. "Who are you?" he choked. She stepped closer. The veil lifted slowly. Her eyes were empty, black wells of endless sorrow. "I am what the house has forgotten. I was once like you, whole. But the door took parts of me, just as it took parts of you." She raised a trembling hand and touched his cheek. Her skin was ice, her touch a burning cold that seared through his soul. "You must remember, or be lost forever." Before he could ask more, she vanished, dissolving into the dust motes, dancing in the attic light. Elias was left alone, breathless and trembling. The house sighed around him, heavier now, hungry for his memories, hungry for his being. Outside, the clock in the hallway struck 3 a.m., and somewhere deep in the shadows, the door waited. Elias crawled through the narrow, suffocating space beneath the house. The journal had mentioned it, a place where a piece of himself was buried. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. His hands scraped against old roots and forgotten bones. In the darkness, he found a small wooden box wrapped in cracked leather. Inside lay a shard of glass, reflecting a twisted version of his own face, and a rusted locket containing a faded photo of the woman in white. The house seemed to pulse beneath him, warning him to stop. But Elias felt the weight of every lost moment. This was a key. Maybe his last. Whispers began seeping from the cracks in the walls, voices that sounded like his own, but distorted, desperate. They told stories of previous victims trapped inside time loops, their souls fragmented and lost. One voice begged, "Find the door and don't go in." Another cried, "He is not the man you think you are." Elias realized the house wasn't just alive. It was a prison, a predator feeding on time and identity. The walls were memories, and they wanted to rewrite his. At the stroke of 3 a.m., the house groaned like a beast awakening. Time shattered around Elias. Past, present, and future collided in warped visions. He saw himself as a child, trapped behind glass. He saw his own corpse, forgotten in a distant year. He saw the house crumbling, devoured by roots and shadows. Everything flickered violently, as if reality itself was about to snap. Elias clung to his sanity, but the house whispered, "Come back, come back." In a newly revealed room, Elias found portraits of a family he never knew. Children with hollow eyes, parents with smiles that twisted into screams. A nameplate read, "The Rains Family, 1923. A diary revealed their fate. They had also discovered the door, and each entry ended with their disappearance into time's void. Elias understood the cycle. The house trapped families, slowly erasing them until they became shadows feeding its hunger. In the living room, a massive grandfather clock stood frozen at 3 a.m., its glass shattered. Elias heard ticking, soft, uneven, like a heartbeat. He smashed the clock, and the house convulsed. Time fractured violently. Elias fell into darkness, but a voice called. The woman in white, guiding him to a hidden passage behind the fireplace. The passage led outside, to a garden overrun with thorny vines. Elias ran, felt the cold air on his skin, the sun above. But the garden warped. Paths twisted back onto themselves. The sky bled into night even as the sun shone. He realized the house's reach stretched beyond its walls. There was no true escape. The door waited, open, silent. Exhausted, broken, Elias returned to the door one final time. The void inside no longer whispered. It sang, a siren call promising rest. He stepped through. The house embraced him, pulling him into its endless hunger. His face appeared in the family portraits, eyes hollow, a new shadow in the walls. And in the hallway, the black door faded, waiting for the next curious soul at 3 a.m.